Everybody, welcome. It's your boy Mozart, and today we're going to be talking about if Lamelo Ball has brought about the death of college basketball. And now I do understand that that's kind of a loaded, question and concept. There's a lot of facets to it, and I do obviously understand that college basketball is still being played. But by the death of college basketball, I mean top NBA recruits or prospects avoiding going to college and just going to a route of going overseas to get paid, or now the G League or other options or variations of those options that are now becoming available. So to make sure that we got a full grasp on what I'm going to be going over today, we're just going to go back on the NCAA history and just kind of talk about how college basketball kind of influenced where things are going. So to touch back on everything, the one and done rule was created in 2006, and with that one and done rule, it made it a lot harder for kids to just jump straight from high school, even if they felt like they were ready, and go right into the NBA, even if they were NBA ready prospects. And I feel like that was kind of an interesting thing to do, and it created an interesting dynamic. With that being said, a lot of kids still did go the college route because of the exposure, because of the training facilities, because of the college experience. So they were able to kind of, get a little bit of that exposure and gain that ability to, take that next step, which ended up being beneficial for so many people. Now, along with that, players not getting paid has become a very serious issue that a lot of people are talking about. And I feel like, with players not being able to move straight into the NBA or getting payment from endorsements, a lot of people were more inclined to get money for their families immediately versus thinking about the long-term goals. And of course, the NBA isn't guaranteed for everybody anyway, so it kind of just puts you in that position where you feel like there is a way to make some money now. What can I do if I can't go straight to the NBA? In 2018, Condoleezza Rice called it incomprehensible for players to get paid for their likenesses, for the jersey sales and video games and things like that, cards, lots of variations of things. So with that being said, it just kind of makes it impossible to make a revenue if you're eating ramen noodles living in a dorm, but you're traveling state to state in these stadiums and bringing in all this income. The coaches can benefit, where coaches like Roy Williams can make $2 million plus from Nike for sponsorships to use their name and likeness, but the students that are actually playing the games cannot. It creates this kind of system where you feel like it's unfair and you want to figure out a way to kind of get some income on your own. So with that being said, it's understandable why players want to go with other options. So about in 2017 or 18, around that same time that Condoleezza Rice had made that comment, the G League rebranded themselves to the G League from the D League, and it was supposed to, boost a lot of players coming in. Obviously, Adam Silver, the NBA was thinking eventually they wanted to get some prospects, high school prospects, to come into the NBA immediately from high school and kind of farm them, kind of like the major league system does in baseball. It seemed like it was going to have potential. It did seem like it was something that they were going to benefit from, but people didn't immediately gravitate towards it. Now, whether that be because of the accommodations in the G League with traveling and their hotel stays, or whether that be from the stadiums and training facilities, or it could just be because of the paychecks. There were a lot of reasons why people would prefer to do other things. So obviously, there were a lot of people that wanted an option. Lamelo Ball was not the first one, nor was he the highest ranked one to actually attempt things like this. So actually, starting off, Brandon Jennings was one of the first ones to give this a try. And a lot of people forget, Brandon Jennings was the top recruit in high school. In high school, he was, destroying everybody, and it was really amazing kind of to see some of the highlights and things that he was putting up. Now, he was in a crazy draft, and that was the interesting thing looking back at it. I mean, there were so many NBA All-Stars and just really good players that came from that draft class. Some along the lines of Blake Griffin, obviously, who went first. James Harden, who is probably obviously the best player out of all of these. Tyreek Evans, who's a really good player for a while, Rubio, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, Drew Holiday, Jeff Teague, and even role players like Patrick Beverly. So there were a lot of players that in that draft class that were guards that were just really good players in the NBA. So it was amazing that Brandon Jennings went 10th amongst all of those players, even though he went overseas to play. He only averaged, overseas, he only averaged 5 points, which wasn't amazing, obviously, and he didn't really acclimate very well overseas, but he still went 10th, even amongst all of these players. So he didn't stay in the league too long, obviously, but he was in contention for Rookie of the Year, even amongst all of these names, and he did drop 55 points his rookie year. So he, even with him playing overseas, he still did produce very early in the NBA. Now, Emmanuel Moodier was another top-ranked recruit that, he was doing very well in high school, projected to be a lottery pick, who chose to go play in China. He had a better stint in China than Brandon Jennings did in Italy, but it was still nothing to scoff at. There are a lot of players doing very well in China that were in the NBA, so I feel like the 18 points that he was averaging over there wasn't really amazing. But he played 12 games over there, was gone for injury, and they did get into the playoffs, so he did play a playoff game or two over there as well. So if that counts for anything, he did get drafted still high with the 7th pick at the Denver Nuggets. So in the NBA, I mean, he's kind of a mixed bag. He was more of a role player, I feel, but he did have some potential early off. So with nothing really happening with Emmanuel Moodier, we kind of jump on with R.J. Hampton. And R.J. Hampton was kind of interesting, I thought, because R.J. Hampton was in the same draft class as Lamelo Ball. So I feel like, with them two competing and, kind of going back and forth within that high school ranking, he was a higher rating player. He's a top 5 rated player. So you would think, with the draft coming, he would get drafted higher after playing overseas. But LaMelo Ball actually did get drafted higher. So it was kind of crazy how he ended up getting drafted 24th and LaMelo ended up getting drafted 3rd. But I mean, he put up 8 points per game overseas, so it wasn't nothing really amazing. He did have a different role, so obviously his story is still to be told in the NBA, so we'll wait and see what happens there. So now that we kind of know about some of the players that have already kind of taken the jump, you'll kind of see why a lot of people were hesitant. There's kind of a mixed bag there. Some players did perform kind of well for spurts in the NBA, but it wasn't really any staying power with a lot of these players. So what separated LaMelo Ball's move from R.J. Hampton's or Brandon Jennings or these other players that kind of tried to take the same jump and do it a different route? I think personally the thing that kind of separated him and that kind of benefited him was what I like to call the Zion effect. Now the Zion effect is kind of with that highlight mixtape, Instagram, YouTube, social media boom that they had, and I mean just every dunk or every half court shot or whatever it was from these guys, it was just giving plays. I was watching highlight tapes from Zion when he was 15, dunking the ball and things like that on people that seemed like they shouldn't even been on the court, or just watching LaMelo Ball point at half court while he's playing with his brothers and pulling up from deep. So I feel like a lot of these highlights people put them on the map with a lot of people very early, and I feel like that effect made them more or less superstar range, like as far as social media is concerned. And they were bringing in checks, and they had the ability to get endorsements early. Now with Zion going to Duke, obviously that turned out to be a lot of entanglement, and there were some things that kind of got mixed up there, so we won't even go over that. But we're going to stick to the LaMelo Ball aspect of it, where with him not accepting these things, not accepting to go to UCLA, whereas he could have ended up sitting on the bench or getting investigated and things like that, which would have wasted a lot of his time. He chose to take a different route, make different moves, built his own league and played in it that a lot of people laughed at, or whether he was playing in a prep school or when he jumped overseas, a lot of people thought it was a bad move and thought that it would have been a better move for him to prove himself against other college players. It turned out that his move didn't affect him at all. he was still drafted number 3. So with that being said, going overseas didn't negatively affect his draft rank at all. So if you just really think about it in that kind of aspect, with the loud and kind of braggadocious way his dad was going about things and kind of pumping up the press for him and going undisputed and first take and things like that, kind of just pumping him up, and his brothers, and with him going around the world and just kind of doing his own thing, still showcasing his talent. A lot of people do sleep on the Australian Basketball League that he was playing in, but at the end of the day, he still produced against grown men, and that does account for something. A lot of his stats did seem like they were forced at times, and a lot of times he was forcing up shots, and it did badly or negatively affect his 3-point percentage and his efficiency. So a lot of people thought he wasn't going to be the player that he is now. So in his mind, he knew that he had put the work in and he was going to get to the heights that he was going to get to. He just had to show people at the highest stage. Now look at his draft. There were other players that were ranked higher than him as guards, whether that be Cole Anthony, whether that be Nico, whether that be RJ. They were ranked higher than Lamelo. But how did he pass them with going overseas, with a lot of people thinking it was a worse idea, with him playing against what they call weaker competition? It was because he had the buzz. It's because he had the social media presence, and also it's because he had his game had that flair where people were willing to kind of get drawn in and sucked in. He had the talent, so obviously, he was able to kind of do things the way that he wanted to do it. A lot of people say talent overcomes a lot of things, so people are willing to put up with more if you have that talent. So that's kind of where he was going with that. So he took that lead, and he kind of started pushing the future for other people and paving a way that if you were really good and you had that talent, you could take this route, or you could take a route to monetize or capitalize on your talent early without having to depend on the college structure. Because now with social media, you can build your own platform, you can build off endorsements, and you can make sure that you get that money. The one negative that I will say that I feel from that is you have to have the skill and the talent. You have to be willing to put in that work, because if you don't have the training infrastructure, and overseas that training infrastructure is a lot different, or if you're buried on a bench and things like that, it's just not going to work out for you the same. So sometimes, for some players, it might not be the best route if they still do need to develop more. In his instance, it turned out that he was ready, and he's proven that in the NBA today, and I don't think anybody can argue that. Now with him producing and performing and doing things exceeding expectations, and even Jordan said that he's exceeding expectations. So I feel like that I can very capably and confidently say that he's exceeding expectations in the NBA. We have to look at the future. And with the future, there's going to be a lot of players that are trying to do this in the future, capitalize now, make the money now, and then go into the NBA and just build off of the money that they've made. Some players are already taking that leap. Jalen Green, Kuminga, Kai Soto. There are a lot of players that are actually now just jumping into the G League, because the G League made it available that they were going to get upwards to $500,000, and I feel like obviously there are taxes that get taken out, and they have to pay their agents and other fees that get taken out, so they may only see maybe a little bit north of $200,000, but that's still a lot of money that they can make, and they can build off of endorsements and start building their brands instantly. Whereas if they went to college, it wouldn't be a possibility. They have to kind of wait until they get out of college before they can build those things. And though a lot of players are getting handed a lot of things under the table, it's very, nobody wants to really go through all the negative press and all the headaches afterwards for getting paid for your talent, getting paid to do what you love to do. So at the end of the day, nobody wants to deal with that. So these boys are going to get the money, they're going to get the training, they're going to get up on the NBA and to build their brands early, and everybody has to give them credit. With them being top prospects, of course they could have went to college, they could have went to any college program that they chose to go to, and nobody would have turned them down. But with them opting to go into the G League and believing in their skills and opting to go into the G League and accepting that money right now and bypassing that college experience, it's opening the door for a lot of other kids that might think about it in the future to say, hey, maybe I'll just go take this money now. I could work on my skills now and just focus strictly on basketball versus bouncing out of class schedule or playing around with, other students or classmates and things of that aspect. So that'll produce a very good future result for them. And I think it's causing a ripple effect that a lot of people are starting to feel now. Now there's rumors that the kid Imani Bates is and phenom. I mean, a lot of people are comparing him to a young Kevin Durant. There's rumors that he's thinking about opting out of going to Michigan State and just going to the G League, and they're thinking of structuring a deal for him that's specifically for him. Everybody knows about Jalen Johnson at Duke and his situation and him just opting out and deciding to strictly just get ready for the NBA. A lot of people are figuring the college experience is just not worth it. It's not worth the headache and it's not worth the struggle. Now, that's not me discrediting an education or discrediting these boys getting an education or learning something outside of basketball, because everybody's not going to make it. Some people are going to get injured. But what I am saying is, if you do want to do something outside of that, or you don't want to focus on getting the education necessarily at that moment, then this is an option for you. So what's the conclusion? What are these kids going to get out of this? Where is this going to lead? How do I feel that Lamelo Ball is destroying, the NCAA with all of these facts that I'm just tossing around? I just feel like at the end of the day, with the exposure and the branding again that he's built on his own using social media, and then with him having the skills to be able to back it once he took his skills overseas and then came back to the NBA and then produced at a high level, a lot of people will feel more comfortable in the future trying to take that, or trying to take that jump and believing in themselves, believing in their skills, and believing in their brand building ability with the people that surround them. And I feel like that's very powerful. I feel like it'll help grow a lot of communities that don't necessarily have the means or necessarily the avenues to get all these doors open. I feel like just like LeBron had kind of brought some of his friends and his family around and put them in high positions, I feel like a lot of these future kids will have a lot of their family and friends in these high positions as well. And I feel like that'll open up the door for a lot of other people to get educated too, not just the player themselves. So at the end of the day, I feel like the reason that I can say LaMelo Ball is the cause of all of this is because although there were people before him that's done it, and there are people after him that's doing it a little bit differently, he is the person that did it his way and then produced the results in the NBA that's going to let other people be able to do that. And I feel like just like smaller big men allow NBA teams to start playing small ball, and then it became kind of like a wildfire that spread amongst the league. When somebody sees something that works or they see something that leads to winning, and right now the LaMelo Ball move is leading to winning in the NBA due to the Hornets being in the playoffs. They just want to copy that formula and kind of develop off of that. There are a lot of people trying to copy the Spurs formula after their years of winning, or copy the Warriors formula. There are a lot of people trying to duplicate what the Miami Heat was doing with their big three very early off. So I feel like at the end of the day, if something works, a lot of people are going to grasp onto it, and it's going to start catching on like wildfire. So you can best believe that a lot of these kids are going to think, hey, I can get paid now. I can go to the league still and produce at a high rate. I'm still going to get drafted high. Nobody is going to discredit me for choosing to go to the G League or choosing to go overseas and to get the money now. I still think that they need an option in America, which is why I think the G League is a great option, because it'll let them stay kind of homegrown, knit, play in a very tight-knit training facility that, yeah, it could be better with their travel accommodations or things like that, but I feel like with these players starting to get into this league, that'll give them the ability to play on ESPN, or because people will be wanting to watch these top prospects battle against each other, or battle against other players that they may have seen in the NBA that were producing at one point. So I feel like it'll produce an interesting dynamic, and the G League can grow off of it. These kids can get money, and I'm all for that. So that's my conclusion with it. I think it's a good thing at the end of the day. I think growth is always a good thing, and I respect Lamelo and for everything he did. The Bulls, I respect everything that they did. A lot of people didn't like the way they handle certain things, but at the end of the day, you see that the results are positive, and that's all you can ask for is a positive result. So anyway, I appreciate everybody for taking the time and listening and just hearing me ramble on about this. I'm gonna try and do some more videos like this in the future. I'm calling this kind of like a little short 20 for 20, like a fake 30 for 30 ESPN used to do, but I'm gonna call it a little short 20 for 20. We're gonna go over some different things. Next time I'm thinking about doing something on the Golden State Warriors and how Draymond Green might have been the linchpin and not Steph Curry. So y'all tune in for that one. That'll be a doozy. But anyway, appreciate y'all for checking me out, and thank you. Like the video, subscribe if you like what you were listening to, and I'll catch y'all next time.